because I want to be well read on it because I want to be ready to talk about it, but it's just so much shit. Imagine being on the jury. Oh, Jesus. All right, so basically what I'm trying to get at is I'm going to do like basically the still night streams of doing panels and stuff like that, but if you see the light shining behind me, you know that there's probably some stuff that like is just in the backlog of things I want to talk about and things. The doctor just disproved fentanyl. What do you mean? Oh no! If he disproved, oh no. What does the defense just is the defense's case just getting hard mode progressively, like it's adaptable AI? All right, so shut the fuck up. I'm just kidding. So if you see if you see God shining, you know we're in the backlog of content. So a few things I want to cover today. The first thing, that we're going to talk about, he can count the breaths and tell if fentanyl is a factor. What? What in the Ghost Whisperer? All right, so P. Diddy is in the news. Why is P. Diddy in the news? Today. Whoa! Confessions of a Native Son is a former black Marine turned entrepreneur that helped black businesses pitch their companies. He also speaks on his expertise as a black Marine. It's great ammo if you end up debating a bunch of conservatives again. Hey, thanks for the heated biddies. Speaking of black businesses, Sean Combs decided to do an article on Revolt. Who's Sean Combs? Why does that name sound... You know how many Jordans black kids wear? Yeah, we're talking about P. Diddy. For those of you who don't know, P. Diddy is living his best life in Florida, like with all the other. It seems to be that you retire by going to Florida. There's nothing wrong with Florida. It's just that it seems to be that's the retirement home for rappers. But I've been following on the gram for a while. He's living his best life. Not living his best life the same way Paul George is living his best life, but he is clearly living his best life. And I'm happy for him. He did an article, excuse me, a letter to corporate America. And the title goes, I guess we gotta stop the medication in the background. It's called "If You Love Us, Pay Us," a letter from Sean Combs to corporate America. So we're gonna play everybody's favorite game show, Joe Louis attempts to read on the internet, and see how far we go. Okay. No longer can corporate America manipulate our culture into believing incremental progress is acceptable action. And it has P. Diddy. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Desmond Tutu. The same feat these companies use to stand with us in solidarity are the same feet that they use to stand on our necks. When confronted by the leaders of several black-owned media companies, General Motors, GM, listed my network, Revolt, as an example of a black-owned media it supports. While Revolt does receive advertisement revenue from GM, our relationship is not an example of success. Instead, Revolt, just like other black-owned media companies, fights for crumbs while GM makes billions of dollars every year from the black community. Exposing GM's historical refusal to fairly invest in black-owned media is not an assassination of character. It's exposing the way GM and many other advertisers have always treated us. No longer can corporate America manipulate our community into believing that incremental progress is acceptable action. Okay. Corporations like General Motors have exploited our culture, undermined our power, and excluded black entrepreneurs from participating in the value created by black consumers. In 2019, brands spent $239 billion on advertising. Less than 1% of that was invested in black-owned media companies. Out of the roughly $3 billion General Motors spent on advertising, we estimate only $10 million was invested in black-owned media. Only $10 million out of $3 billion. Like the rest of corporate America, General Motors is telling us to sit down, shut up, and be happy with what we get. Okay, so not that I disagree with what he's laying out here. I usually don't react halfway through a read. That's a lie. I do it all the time. I think something that could be very powerful here is further research on something like this. And maybe there's a conversation article that exists that fulfills the back scratchies that I'm looking for, right? Because like if you're saying that out of the 3 billion, you're estimating only 10 million, like something that could have been powerful here is unless it's this. Oh, it lists to revolt. A list of all black-owned businesses featured in Pharrell and Jay-Z's Entrepreneur video. Okay. Interesting. Does it link to the video in question? Wow. It does. I can't watch this, though, sadly. Because of terms of service. All right. Okay. So I think something that would be really powerful here is just citing why he estimate, like why he thinks that's the estimate. But yeah, small thing, but not a huge thing. It's disrespectful that black-owned media companies only represent 1% of the total advertising market. It's disrespectful that distributors refuse to carry black-owned media brands in an era where our impact and influence is undeniable. It's disrespectful that the same community that represents 14% of the population, spends over $1.4 trillion annually, is still the most economically undervalued and underserved at every level. To repeat, 1.4 trillion annually, the almighty black dollar. We demand that corporate America reinvest an equitable percentage of what you take from our community back into our community. If the black community represents 15% of our revenue, black-owned media should receive at least 15% of the advertising spend. The same way you understand the power of our dollars, we understand our power to take them away from any corporation that doesn't give us an economic inclusion we deserve. We are prepared to weaponize our dollars. Okay. On its face, sure. 15 for 15 sounds like a reasonable thing. The question and this links to another Revolt article. One thing that I wonder, and I don't really have an answer to this question that I'm about to propose, is I don't understand. I wish I understood more about like what people's arguments are about markets, because I feel like there's a market argument that exists here, but I just don't. My brain can't like create it right now. Maybe because it's early for me. Not really early. I'm usually up at this time, but like, okay, so if 15% would go to black communities, or black-owned media would receive at least 15% of the advertising spend, what's going to happen? God, I don't know how to word this argument. If you get 15 for 15, wouldn't there also be a desire to expand beyond the 15, you know? Because there might be even a way to rationalize that, hey, because of our influence in media, and it's very clear due to insert evidence here, then we want our share to be larger because of our influence. And this is where I think some individuals of the country might push back on. I don't know. I'm not that much of a markets guy, so I can't really. My brain can't produce a counter markets argument. If you love us, pay us. Not a token investment, not a charity check or donation. Its time is now. Radical change is the only option. You're either with us or you're on the other side. Next up on interests. And is that it? That's it. Okay. So the request appears to be if the black community. Oh, okay. Reading this the second time, I get it. If the black community represents 15% of your revenue, black-owned media should receive at least 15% of your advertising spend. Got it. Okay. So that's something, to think about. Now, excuse me, I would say sure, but maybe there's like, I don't know, like what's the determination of something? Oh, whoa, my. See what I'm talking about? Like this grace of God thing? Like what is your evidence that the representation is only 15? What if it's greater than that? If it's greater than that, should it be equitable to that? I would argue probably yes. But something that is kind of like the question, not really kind of, it's one thing, right? Is that how do you, I don't know how to word this thought. Basically, I think you could argue that Diddy is trying to ask the powers that be for more when the powers that be might not be invested into giving you more in the first place. So then the question, I think, at least for me, is like, why would they want to give you more in the first? Like, why? Like, what do they get? Like, what do they get in it in the outcome? And I don't know. Like, again, I'm just kind of asking open-ended questions to just things that are just on my mind currently. Oh, bees are back. Cool.